In honor of Men's Health Awareness Month, we're here with Sheng to spill the tea.
All right.
So Sheng, please introduce yourself to our audience.
Of course. Hi, everyone. My name is Sheng. I'm a Reno native, was born in Sparks, raised in Reno. And I'm about 32 years old. I'm a dad. My undergrad was in neuroscience and psychology with a minor in art. I also got my MBA in finance. So, a lot of the work that I do nowadays is trying to understand human behavior, but trying to understand, how do we approach living on the planet in a healthy way, whether that's exploring, financial health, mental health, or physical health.
That's awesome. Thanks. Why do you think there's so much stigma around mental health, and specifically mental health when it comes to men?
I would say that formal help when it comes to mental health is a really new phenomenon that's kind of evolved. It's in a lot of ways for a lot of men, it's a luxury or a privilege that we felt like we didn't really deserve. When you grow up into the world, you're taught that you're kind of supposed to provide. You're supposed to not really complain about your emotions, or that the only emotion you can kind of express yourself in is through anger, right? And then you see a lot of the violence that the world has gone through. As a man, there's an understanding that you have to fight, which is a normal thing that we're all born. That's kind of an understanding of the people in charge, they have to fight over resources. And so with a lot of those things in regards to mental health, we kind of can't complain because there's always this this understanding that we can't really complain about things. We don't really complain about the other things. And so I think mental health is a newly evolved form of health that men haven't really gotten to explore for themselves yet. And we're definitely learning how to, we're breaking a lot of the previous barriers that used to exist for, our parents and the generations before that. But I think every generation just learns, and we share the information, especially now through the internet.
Right.
And as times have evolved, we slowly get better over time. I think the hard part of why men feel there's so much stigma around mental health is because we feel like it's a privilege. Right now we currently feel like we don't have the opportunity to allow ourselves to feel any sympathy towards ourselves. So we kind of just need to it goes back to the whole shut up and just take it, or just just go back to work and keep working hard. Which
you're
also
a man, you should just
exactly
deal with it,
right.
Man up,
right. But we're seeing that that's not sustainable either, right? We've just seen it throughout history, the fallout that comes from that. You have a lot of men that either commit suicide, or they end up becoming very violent themselves, or very closed off themselves.
So I want to ask you, going back to it, you said there's a lot of barriers. How do we break those barriers down?
Like with anything else, right? It comes with time. There are some things that you just can't rush and force. It's once you learn the whole cycle of a process of it's good to experience the emotion, internalize the emotion, interpret it, understand how it makes you feel the emotion, and then let it out in that way, process it in a very healthy way. But that doesn't happen with that a snap of a finger, right? Everything like that kind of takes time.
Why is mental health and taking care of mental health important to you?
I think it's more so a requirement. If you don't take care of your physical health, you end up seeing consequences to that. If you don't take care of your financial health, eventually you have to pay the piper, right? So it's the same with mental health. People get really surprised when certain breakdowns happen, but you could be taking on so much stress, and I see this with people all the time where they're taking on so much stress. They maybe lost another family member. They're feeling a lot of financial stress, and they don't know how to come to terms with what they do for work. And then they also feel a lot of academic stress at the same time. All of those things happen at the same time, and if you don't take the time to prioritize your mental health, then your body's going to do it for you. Right? If you don't take care of how you feel and your emotions day to day, how you talk to yourself specifically, all of that really builds up on top of itself, and it catches up to you.
That's so true and so important. You mentioned earlier, your undergrad was in neuroscience, and what made you want to do neuroscience and mental health psychology?
Well, not to be cliche, but because I grew up Asian, there was a lot of societal pressure and pressure from my family to become a doctor, right?
Yeah.
So there was a huge expectation that I was going to go into medicine. I was always interested in human psychology, and in hindsight, it was because of a lot of the abuse I faced as a kid, and not that it's bad now. Looking back, I can definitely understand why. My parents had gone through so much, but it's I see now on my dad, he did not have the best childhood either. He didn't, he was raised with so many less resources than what I have now, and he was forced to to deal with a lot of that as well. And of course, you know, the hardest times when I reflect were during the 2008 financial crisis, you know, which, you know, it makes sense. A lot of families I know were struggling during that time, if not everyone. So yeah, when I look back, the reason why I did neuroscience and psychology was because of my upbringing. You know, growing up, I was constantly suicidal. You know, it was really hard to shake, and I always caught myself alone by myself in a room, like thinking about things. You know, just so like I was often like really introspective and just thinking about things that happened during the day, how I could do things better, like how I could think about things in a different perspective, trying to think about something through someone else's perspective. And so because I did that so much during my childhood, it made me kind of like really interested in into psychology. And the reason why I did neuroscience is because it was a good mix between me wanting to honor, like, you know, my childhood, and then also wanting to study to become a doctor for my family.
For your family. Yeah. Share as much as you're comfortable sharing, of course. But so you mentioned you were suicidal as a child, growing up and everything, and unfortunately we've lost people to suicide. How did you process and grieve those losses?
So there's a concept I've been like thinking on and like working with for like the last 2 weeks now. It's funny that you bring this up because we actually just passed the anniversary of one of my friends passing, Sloan, and I miss him a lot. He was a very good friend, and you know,
Sloan was really nice.
Yeah, he was. He was a jokester, and he, you know, loved
the
playing
crickets. I still remember the crickets.
Yeah, I know, that was a bad one. But yeah, which I actually feel bad for because that was my idea, but he was the one that did it.
But you know, he brought like, what was it, the cricket cake to the office later, and all of the admins loved it. So Sheng and I went to high school together, and I had a classmate, Sheng's friend Sloan, who for senior prank week released crickets into the school. It is a prank that went down for the ages. Great toaster. And to celebrate or kind of apologize almost, he made a cricket shaped cake and brought it to the administrators. But unfortunately, Sloan is no longer with us, and his anniversary of his passing was recent.
Yeah, it was it's really hard because his passing was on Cinco de Mayo, was on May 5th, and when it happened, like a couple days later, his birthday's on May 9th, and what was also really hard is that it was around Mother's Day as well. So it was difficult because so yeah, it was a lot of like coinciding days, you know, because Kristen, one of our really close friends as well, her birthday's on Cinco de Mayo. So, and Sloan, like you know, he just didn't think about stuff like that. But yeah, like when he had committed suicide, it was on Kristen's birthday, right before Mother's Day and right before his birthday. So it was a lot of emotions at the time, to say the least. And it sucks, you know, really reflecting on it and like thinking about that time. It was a hard time, but you know, there's no ignoring grief, you know, and like and again with a lot of like the other like subjects that we talked about, like things can only really heal with time. You know, sometimes you just need time and you need space. You need the ability to reflect with yourself. Sometimes you need to talk with other people about it. You know, it's a combination of everything, right? You have to try those different combinations of everything to find what works for you. And yeah, what I've really learned from losing friends over the years, like, because I mean, yeah, there was Sloan, you know, losing him was a heartbreak, and you know, there was Sebastian as well, that happened like shortly after, and then I remember losing Coleman as well, and like that was really dark time as well, and you know, and I would love to keep everyone until old age, right? But I think that's like the point of life and the scarcity of moments that you experience in life. One thing I've learned is that grief is proof of love, you know. And if you want to love, you have to be comfortable with the idea that you're going to lose that love one day, because that's the point, right? That's the reason why we do love, and that's why it feels so good when you're in the highs, and then it feels so horrible when you're in the lows. Like one thing I say to myself all the time is that that's kind of the deal we all make. You know, if you want to live, you want to be born, then the deal is that you have to die at the end of it, you know. And if you want to love someone, then that's the cost of it. You have to take the risk that one day you're either going to break up with them, it's going to end in heartbreak, or you will eventually lose them to death, you know. And that's the sad fact of reality, you know, is that if you want to enjoy the color of the spectrum, you have to embrace the black and white, right? If you want to know the good, then you have to find the bad. And and you know, and nowadays, like, I don't, like, of course there's a lot of sad emotions of it, you know, like him not being here with us, but I like to focus on the good now. You know, I
remember the memories.
Yeah, I remember all the good memories, and like Sloan was amazing in that regard. He like really just wanted to make people laugh, and I always like really appreciated that about him. You know, he was like he loved to do pranks, and he people like kind of viewed it as like really immature in a certain sense, but he was just trying to make people laugh. You know,
Yeah.
and in hindsight, like laughter is medicine. You know, and when I look back at it, I think he was trying to make people laugh during the hard times. You know, when things
Yeah.
when we didn't really have much to laugh about, and I really appreciate him for doing it.
Yeah.
I miss him a lot for doing it. So.
As a dad yourself, how do you see yourself taking care of your son?
Well, I think it's also different for me than like the most like average dad, because I do have a neuroscience degree, and a lot of my undergrad was spent like trying to understand like just child development, because
Yeah.
like because my childhood was so bad, it's pretty typical for any kid. Like if you have a bad childhood, you want to make sure that you become a good parent. Right?
Yeah.
And so that was a really big motivator for me when I was younger. I wanted to study a lot about child development, understanding how the brain worked, and just so how I can like give the best fighting chance for my son.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and so like a lot of things that I've learned from like different child psychologists is that, especially when they're at a young age, like sometimes you just have to let them cry it out, and you just have to console them. You know?
Yeah.
And there is a concern about like they'll make the argument of like conditioning, right? If you're constantly conditioning a child into knowing that like, hey, you're there to comfort them constantly, then that'll lead into like toddlerism or like adult or early childhood and then adulthood, right? So one thing that I learned from those different psychologists is that when they're that young as a child, like really everything in the brain is just like, when there's so much cortisol and such high stress, everything's just kind of experienced as like a trauma response if they aren't getting what they need, right?
Okay.
So really what they need in that time is either the thing that they're requiring, like food, sleep, or comfort, but really they will oftentimes just need comfort from the parent.
Yeah.
And so whenever he has a tantrum, like one thing I noticed from like parenting in the 90s is that they would like let the child cry it out, right? Which is like definitely healthy. Sometimes there's like not much that you can do to help them because they're just really frustrated and upset.
Mm-hmm.
Now I just try to hug them through it, and I just hug him through it. I like try to show him how I'm breathing, and I try to imprint that on him so that he starts breathing or at least just recognizing his breath a little bit more. He tries to take it a little bit slower, and that'll just help him like learn how to like regulate his emotions and to like de-escalate himself over time. Basically like in a lot of ways they mimic what we do, right? And so one thing a lesson I've learned from being a parent is that the best thing you can do is just not lose your shit when your kids lose their shit. And so whenever he's crying, like he's gonna reflect what he sees in me, right?
Yeah.
And so if I'm like also reacting like in an upset way, I'm like getting really mad about something, he's going to see that behavior as like a social norm, right?
Mm-hmm.
As like this is a way to kind of like
it's okay to have that reaction.
Yeah, it's okay to have like and it is okay to have the reaction, but you can also like the more and more you do it, the more you bring it out. Right?
Yeah.
And so in teaching him like how to like kind of control his breathing, how to like just like to take a breath and just to relax, and we kind of just hug it out, and he just cries it out on my shoulder.
Okay.
Slowly over time he just like breathes and he slows down and he learns to de-escalate himself.
Yeah.
So he learns to like slowly regulate his emotions over time, and like so that there's just an understanding and like this development of like, hey, having big feelings is okay. We can have big feelings, but we work through them. We don't always take out our feelings on other people, especially right now. He loves to take it out on mom and dad.
Yeah.
And so we're just teaching him to we just slowly breathe through it.
You say having big feelings is okay.
Mm-hmm.
How do you recommend to other men also, you have these big feelings, and it's okay, how do you cope with these big feelings or deal with it?
Yeah, well, so the big feelings talk is kind of like just something I've learned from Miss Rachel in regards to like toddlers and stuff. When it comes to like talking to like other grown men about it, it's like, I feel like that type of like statement would be like an understatement, right? It's like, because you're dealing with so much stress of like you're trying to figure out like what you want to do in life, how do you want to be successful, how do you provide, how do you learn to eventually take care of yourself when you kind of never have before. And so my advice to other guys is it's important to talk to other men about it. So there was a study about high schools, right? The most popular person in the high school was the person that always they liked everyone else the most. And so people that tend to be the most popular are the ones that are oftentimes most friendly, they're often most sociable, they're the ones that are trying to make events happen, right? And that kind of ends to that result of why they're the most popular, right? Because they're always the ones that they generally like the most people, and they're the ones that are trying to make the most things happen. And so that's what I would recommend to other men. If you feel like you don't have any friends or anyone that you can talk to, be a friend, you know. And that's really hard, especially when you're like stuck in that mind loop of like of negativity, you know. How do you get out of that? But it really begins with trying to start yourself, you know. There are moments where I feel very alone and I feel like I can't talk to anyone about anything, and immediately what I'll do is I'll just try to call up every single friend that I have, people that I know that they will respond, or I'll send a text, you know. It's like,
Yeah.
it's good to be like aware about people's schedules nowadays. Not everyone can take a call,
Yeah.
but I think it's really important, like if you want to have a social lifestyle, you need to be social first, you know. And having a rich social life is actually what leads to like the betterment of like living, you know. It's like there are a lot of studies in Europe that actually also show that like a lot of longevity is tied to the rich social life that they have, alongside with diet and stuff. But
So like the community aspect of it.
yeah, like especially with like places like Italy or Japan,
Yeah.
like they're really well known for that.
Okay,
But
that's-
yeah,
I think the best advice right now is, you know, if we need help, also we can help others, but it's okay to also ask for help. So yeah, thank you so much, Sheng, for getting tea with me today.
Yeah,
For spilling all the tea. Let's not throw it.